Hey, meaningful movers. Welcome back to Moving with Meaning, the podcast, where actions have meaning, words have meaning, and we open up the conversations to discover what's your next move. I'm your host, Krystal. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how quickly our mood and energy levels can shift without even the slightest hint. Or is there? But y'all know how it is and what we do. We need to set that theme, so let's go ahead and do that. The word of the day is affirmation. This is the act of both giving and receiving emotional support, acknowledgement, or encouragement. I think it's fair to say that many of us are looking for that, though we are stubbornly defiant to admit it. This isn't meant to be translated as you being less independent. Quite the contrary. You are human, and we all need a little TLC. Yet, even then, we struggle to communicate how that looks and feels for us uniquely. That frustration can build up and cause our actions, thoughts, words, and disposition to go a little haywire. After all, one may think if you're not getting the results you want one way, then why not do the complete opposite? And that's enough of me talking. How about we introduce our guest? And there is no one better to do that than himself, Dave. Why don't you give the people a bit of background about yourself and what you're going to share with us today?
Great. Hi, Krystal. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Dave Mowry. I suffer from bipolar disorder, severe anxiety, have all my adult life. The anxiety started when I was 13 and has been with me. I was a successful businessman, doing well, and the family and I were very happy and content. And then in 1996, I had a mental breakdown. My mind snapped. Literally, I could feel it. I could hear it. The muscles in my face went slack and my voice went monotone and my mind just stopped working and my vision was a bit blurry. I went home, sat on the couch, and then I went to bed and started my 14 lost years and dark days of not being able to function, isolating, not being able to interact with people. If I did, it was in a situation where I had to, I'd pretend I'd be the imposter. I'd pretend to be okay. But I knew if they looked in my eyes, they'd see the fear and anxiety and dread inside me. And so I would be the least interesting person to talk to and hope they would go away as quickly as possible. Then I'd go blend into the wall and hope nobody would come up and talk to me. I'd go to the mailbox at night because that way I wouldn't run into anybody and I wouldn't have to talk to anybody.
That's really interesting. Let me jump in here. I think you're describing a whole lot of feelings that people feel. Well, I call them funks, where I'll hit a funk. I talk to a lot of people and they're like, oh my God, you do that too, where I just don't want to be around anyone. I want to disconnect. I want to not be bothered. Just this jovial person that I was. It's this quick shift in attitude, in tone. Some people can pick up on it and some people can't. That lack of the facial expression that you mentioned, to me, it's all in the eyes. Like you can see in somebody's eyes that something is wrong before anything else happens, before anything else follows behind it. The fact that you were getting through and trying to manage it for as long as you can. But you're right, it's like an imposter. Like you put somebody else in front of someone just so they don't ask any more questions, or so they don't, I don't know, perhaps try to engage you, like you said, in conversation. And you're like, I really don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to me. It's interesting how the similarities are there. But I think what really caught me by the way you described was your snapping, your brain snapping, and how you called it a nervous breakdown. For me, when I hear a nervous breakdown or when I did before, it was like a complete, like you had to be checked in, like you were out of control. You might have been wailing or something like that. It's always something just spontaneous and fireworky, but yours was like an internal. It's almost like a deep hole within you, and you just felt yourself pushing yourself in until it was like no one left.
I think that's exactly right. When my mind snapped, and it's an old saying, but I could feel it, I could hear it. It was like a twig snapping. It was like an electric impulse in my brain. It just snapped and completely changed. And funk. I went into a funk. The problem with my funk is that it lasted 14 years.
Yeah.
And, with my wife was there to support me. We, again, successful business to losing it all. We were homeless for 18 months.
Well, tell me about that. The had it all, the lose it all.
Yeah.
It's how sometimes, someone is incapable of working, and in this case, from mental duress. Was it because you're the breadwinner or because of the care that was needed? What happened that everything had to go by the wayside?
I couldn't function. I literally couldn't function. Either sitting on the couch or laying in bed and getting up and just everything I could do just to be. But the business relied on me, and when I wasn't there, the business failed. We ended up $200,000 in debt. I couldn't work. I couldn't function. And I was hospitalized for a time. And without that income and me not being able to be there, we just going from being comfortable to essentially having nothing, losing our home. Yeah. That's the story at that time.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. You're sitting here talking to me. The other thing about that, and as much as we can talk about what happened with the 14 years and how you got back together, you stuck together. There's a lot of people would just have given up and just said, screw it. To have gone from such highs to such lows so fast, and then how you hung on to life, how you hung on to yourself. I just want to make sure that we don't miss that. And for me to say that to you and to those who are listening, it happens. This stuff does happen. But no matter how long it takes, it's going to happen. You're going to come back from this. What was the recovery? Because I didn't know that you went into the hospital.
Yeah. What I wanted was peace of mind. My mind was racing. I had the negative thoughts, the loop over, and I had no peace. And all I wanted was peace of mind. Being in the hospital helped because nobody would see me. Nobody could reach me by telephone. Only somebody that I allowed to come in would come in. I got that break in that way. But talking about my wife sticking with me, she's really the hero of my story. You're right. I think a lot of people would have left me. I know that's the case. If she would have, I would have been in a single room occupancy apartment in Old Town Portland and getting my food from a food kitchen.
Yeah.
That would be my story. But she stayed with me. So again, she's the hero of my story. Without that support, I don't know where I'd be. And here I am talking to you. And it's because of that support, being able to go through those lost years and then start to come back from the other side. At a certain point, the 5 stages of grief, and, there was denial, and eventually there was acceptance that I had a mental illness and that this was happening to me. But I never felt resignation. I always kept trying.
Yeah.
I tried to do this. I tried to interact. I tried to work. I tried to do different things. And I failed. I don't know if failing's the right word, but I just couldn't do it, even though I kept trying.
No, it wasn't fail. I love to say that you found, okay, this was not working. Let me try another way. So I think you just found ways that weren't working. And like you said, are you stealing my word of the day? Is that what you're doing? That was so good. I was like, look at that. Yeah, you did it. Because it's like, hey, if this isn't working, I'm going to do something else. If that's not going to work, I'm going to keep going until I run out of options, which there are plenty of. I mean, I'm sitting here. They can't see me here, but I have been smiling since you have been talking about your wife and how you've been going through this. So I hope you appreciate me just smiling, because it's just such an inspirational story that you have. And we haven't gotten to the, what is it, NAMI?
Right. Just, and that's partly my wife's being there and staying with me and supporting me. She saw, it was just a little notice in the, wherever she saw it, the NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. NAMI was they had monthly meetings, and she said, go to this. I went. I sat in the car for about half an hour before I had the wherewithal to go in. But I went in and I was accepted just for where I was and who I was. So I could be alone in the room. They didn't push. They didn't prod. They didn't ask a bunch of questions. They just let me be. I heard people talking, and they had a speaker, and I realized that was me. So I went back the next month, and they had a name tag for me. And again, they just let me be. Over time, I felt comfortable, and I was interacting. And it's interesting because later, they asked me to do some volunteer work, which I did. And then that led to me getting a job there in 2010. And that's when I came out of my lost years and dark days. People would have their stories and I could understand and accept. And I worked with people and listened to their stories and could relate. That got me out of my head, and it was healing for me. That was really the turning point in my life. And it's because of my wife. And then I went to NAMI and really started to heal.
Let me ask you 2 questions. What does NAMI stand for?
National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Oh, cool. Okay. The first thing that I got from when you started explaining your experience when you first got there, it was like you were surrounded by peers, people who understood you.
Yes.
I think it's one of those things where, I don't know, I have never been to one of these, but it's just what I hear people explain about AA.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works, but it's like, why don't you share today? And it's like, well, listen, I'm going to tell you when I'm going to share. And it really sounded like that was the case. And what I could see is small steps, and they kept turning into larger steps for you. It was just come in and don't say anything. The next time you went, here's a name tag, right? It's like, okay, now I belong. I'm a member. They understand and they have accepted me. Then it was volunteer, do the speaking part of it. Then it went on and on and on because now you found purpose. And it just kept building onto that. You said they asked you to volunteer for something?
Yes.
What was that?
They have a program called In Our Own Voice, where people share part of their story. When I started volunteering and being honest about my story and not pretending that I was okay, I was calm and I was peaceful, and I could do that. Whereas I was still not able to interact with people on a regular basis. The anxiety would build. I'd have a panic attack and I'd have to escape. But when I was telling my story with honesty and openness, that didn't happen. I was calm. I told my story. It led to more acceptance on my part, but it was also helping other people. And I started to find my purpose. I had no purpose before. I was just trying to hang on, just trying to be, and just trying to survive. Going with NAMI and starting to tell my story and work with other peers,
I love that.
I found my purpose. It was to help other people and wherever they were in their journey with mental illness, mental health challenges, to share a little bit about my story, to understand, to accept them. I found my purpose.
Isn't that amazing, though? Once you hit that acceptance, once you say, okay, I'm going to be honest with who I am, at that point, I'm no longer afraid of judgment. I think when we talk about pretending, it's like the pretender versus protector. So for me pretending is I'm thinking I'm protecting, not myself. I'm protecting other people from me. Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way like I'm going to cause somebody harm. But you think I have something going on with me mentally. And I'm thinking I don't want to burden anybody else with that. So I start pretending because I'm thinking I'm protecting them. And in actuality, it's hurting them because they're thinking, well, why didn't you give me the chance to help? Why did you not trust me? Right. It's like a double-edged sword in that case. And it's good to hear you say before you had that acceptance, you always had the panic attacks. And then right after that, it was easier to speak about it. It was easier to speak to people. It was just a breath of fresh air. It was like a normal day, breathing in and out without the hesitations, without the choking on your chest. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but I've always had a tightness in my chest and like a knot in my throat.
Yep.
When I got that way, for sure. Now you've told stories, right? So you've now been able to speak in front of people, but that didn't stop there, did it?
No, I was asked to blog by bphope.com, BP Magazine, bphope.com, and it's one of the top blogs in the country for mental health. And so I started telling my story 600 words at a time. There was these 3 steps to better mental health, or, do this, or this helps, or recommendations, that type of thing. And what I did is I just wrote about my experiences of my panic attacks, what it felt, the situation. And so I told my story that way. It resonated with people, and my blog posts have been read by over 1 million people. And the most common response is, OMG, that's me. You're telling my story. I don't feel so alone now. And they'd share the blog post with family and friends. And so people could truly understand what somebody with a mental illness, what it was like and what somebody was going through.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. It's interesting how powerful your story is, that people will share what your words were and say, this is me. Because you know what I'm saying? Like
I do.
They can't write it. I can't say it as well as this person has just articulated my entire life. So instead of me doing this, how about let me take my first step and share somebody else's story and say, this is exactly what I've been trying to tell you this whole time. It's so magical.
When you're in that spot, I know when I was in my dark days, I had all the feelings and the experiences, but I didn't know how to describe it. I just didn't know. When I was able to share those experiences and other people could see it and feel it, like I said, it resonated with them. And during that time, at that same time, NAMI brought in a comic from Vancouver, BC, and this comic taught stand-up comedy to folks with mental illness. For whatever reason, I said, I can do that. And so I joined the class. The more challenges you've had, the more material you have for comedy. And I had lots of material.
True.
And I started looking for looking for humor in those bad experiences and my great challenges, my panic attacks, my anxiety, all these different things. Once I started looking for the humor in it, it changed everything, because I had PTSD from the loss and the tragedy and the homelessness and all that. I'd hear a song on the radio and it would trigger thoughts, and I'd go back to that and experience that bad time and those bad feelings. And looking for the humor in my experiences, it started to not happen. It changed everything. My PTSD was reduced. It wasn't all the way gone, but it was almost all the way gone. I was able to write jokes, and I helped other people in the class write jokes. I had a knack for it. It was a surprise to me. And then we performed. And again, I was nervous and I had panic attacks when I talked in front of groups or whatever, except when I was telling my story. But I could get on stage in front of 100 people and tell my story one joke at a time and never be nervous, always able to tell it. One reason is because I liked my jokes. I thought my jokes were funny. So if I thought they were funny, I was telling them that's okay, even if somebody else didn't think they're funny.
Oh, yeah. You got to like your own material, for sure.
Exactly. Exactly.
One thing I wanted to point out is when people say, oh, I'm going to turn that situation to something humorous, it's not, just as more of a clarification, it is not as if we're making light of the situation. That's not the intent of us saying, or of you saying, okay, as I'm about to go into this panic attack or something is being triggered, I'm not going to go into a space of negativity. It's just creating a positive atmosphere in my environment for me to go to, so that whenever that memory comes up, I'm no longer attaching the negative feelings and emotions and thoughts to it. I'm attaching something that's more positive, something that's more fruitful, something that is, relatable, palatable to others who have been through something like that and could also see it in a different manner as well. It's like a love language, like, the language of humor that I think is universal to a lot of people. I think it crosses all bridges and ways of life and cultures, because everyone loves to smile. Everyone loves that.
Yeah, when I'm performing it, I'm not making fun of people. I'm just telling my story and what impacted me, and then coming across with making it humorous. Again, people in the audience relate and feel a release and a relief, and that's, other people are going through this thing. He went through this, but he found humor in it. By sharing that humor, again, people would laugh. The comments would be, OMG, that's me. Are you ready for a joke? Can I share one with you?
I was just going to say, you want to take us out with a joke?
Sure. When being mentally ill, and I took medication, and one of the side effects from the medication was weight gain. And true to form, I gained 30 pounds after I started taking my meds. So I decided to do something about it. I joined a fitness club and I started working out. And one day I was doing the treadmill and the guy next to me looked over and said, "You're not going very fast." I said, "That's okay. My mind's racing."
Very true.
Yeah. So, that covers medication, that covers mind racing, that covers negative thoughts, that covers
So much.
and shares with humor. Especially people with mental health challenges laugh and they understand and they relate.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. I teach stand-up comedy to folks with mental illness now, and the same thing, the transformations happens with them, and I see that transformation, and they find humor. It's healing with humor. It's powerful, and it doesn't have to be mental illness. It can be any kind of loss or any kind of trauma. There are some things that are never funny. It just takes people away from that, and it's very powerful.
I like the last piece of that where you said healing with humor. I think that was like a brilliant last statement. And I was going to actually say, did you have any golden nuggets that you want to add some ketchup? So I don't know if you wanted to do that as the joke or did you want to add a little tip?
Yeah, I think the joke would be, because it pushes boundaries. It's a bit edgy, but it's also a laugh out loud funny.
Okay,
and reminding it's a joke. When I was especially in a very dark place and things were really bad, I decided to end it all. So I went up into the bathroom and I took a bunch of pills. And afterwards, I called my wife for help. She said there are more pills under the sink. I know.
I got it. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And so, everybody I know with bipolar disorder has suicidal ideation. Everybody. And it comes out. And most people don't act on it. But when you can find some humor in it, it's really healing.
Thank you so much for just having this conversation with me and reaching out to a lot of folks. I know you're going to touch a lot of people today. That's the episode today. I have to say personally, when that feeling of acceptance, validation, or recognition comes through, it is like you are taking a breath for the first time. Or you've wiped the smudges from your glasses, put them back on, and you see the world so much clearer. You want to hold on to that feeling forever. Oh well, we all know that's not the case. My advice? Savor that moment and catch it in a bottle, like one of those fireflies, or lightning bugs as we used to call them, because just like them, given enough oxygen, our light shines even in the brightest of days. Or we can take Dave's approach and crack a joke. Smile and laugh. Humor is a form of healing, That's why I appreciate Dave for sharing his personal story and finding his talent for humor and using it to help others. Can any of you relate to Dave's struggles and feel that you are always taking the wrong turns? It's important to never give up. Everyone's journey has its own pace. Make sure to keep your eyes focused on your target. Perhaps you have a similar story and would love to share your moment of affirmation. I love it all, and so will someone else. Before I let you go, Dave, why don't you go ahead and remind the people who you are, where they can find your resources, or reach out to you.
Okay, Dave Mowry. You can look at my book, OMG, That's Me. It's a compilation of the blog posts, most popular posts. And it's sold over 17,000 copies and done really well because people can relate. Also, OMG, That's Me 3. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, but if anybody listening wants to talk or connect individually, my email is davemowry2@gmail.com. I'd like to hear from you and share your story with me, and we can both heal with a little humor.
I'll make sure to include all of Dave's resources and connections in the episode description, as well as on my website's resources page, movingwithmeaning.com. Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Moving With Meaning, the podcast, and tap that alert bell so you know when these episodes drop. I am on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music. Please share, like, repost, and follow. Tag someone. We are creating a community here. Quick housekeeping before you go. Follow me on Instagram at movingwithmeaning82 and on Pinterest at Arthur K.B. Clark. Also connect with me on LinkedIn. I do dabble in TikTok at Krystal B. Clark. My Etsy store has some handy dandy digital downloads. Lastly, run over to my YouTube channel and have a look or two. Links are in the episode. Alrighty, I'm Krystal on Moving with Meaning, the podcast, reminding you to take it one step at a time. All moves have meaning. Check you later.